The automatic door slid open with a quiet whoosh as Samantha stepped into the brightly lit department store, her eyes sparkling with excitement. She loved shopping, even if it was just to browse. Samantha, a young woman with Down syndrome, was full of life. Always polite, always smiling. She wore her favorite yellow sweater, the one her mom said made her look like a ray of sunshine. She walked to the accessories section, her fingers brushing over the soft scarves and shiny bracelets, admiring them with innocent joy. She wasn't in a hurry. For Samantha, small things made life beautiful. Across the store, near the makeup aisle, a group of 3 young women stood giggling. They were dressed in trendy clothes, their perfect hair falling in sleek waves. Jessica, the ringleader, smirked as she nudged her friend. "Look at her," Jessica whispered. Her voice dripped with mockery. "She's acting like she can actually afford any of this." Her friends, Mia and Lily, snickered, watching as Samantha picked up a sparkly handbag and admired herself in the mirror. Jessica, never one to let an opportunity for cruelty pass, strutted over. Her high heels clicked sharply against the polished floor. "Oh my gosh, that bag is so cute," she said loudly, her voice oozing fake kindness. "You should totally get it." Samantha's face lit up. "You think so?" she asked, holding it up. Jessica's smile twisted. "Yeah, I mean, why not? You must have like tons of money, right?" Mia and Lily giggled behind her, covering their mouths. Samantha hesitated. She wasn't naive. She could feel something was off. But she was used to people treating her differently. Usually they were kind. Today something felt wrong. "It's a little expensive," Samantha said honestly, placing the bag back carefully. Jessica tilted her head. "Oh, that's too bad. But don't worry. Maybe someone will buy it for you, out of pity." Lily gasped, pretending to be shocked. "Jessica," she said, giggling. "That's so mean." Jessica smirked, not sorry at all. Samantha's fingers curled into her sleeves. She tried to focus on something else, anything else, but the laughter behind her made her chest feel tight. Then a voice cut through the air. A voice everyone recognized. "Excuse me." The laughter stopped instantly. The air shifted. The entire store seemed to pause. Jessica turned, already annoyed, until she saw who was standing there. The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica's smug expression vanished in an instant. Her mouth hung open slightly, eyes wide as if she wasn't sure whether to laugh or faint. Mia and Lily exchanged frantic looks, their hands tightening around their designer purses. Because standing just a few feet away, dressed casually in a black t-shirt, jeans and aviator sunglasses, was none other than Tom Cruise. Yes, the Tom Cruise, the man who had starred in blockbuster movies, the action hero known around the world. But right now, he wasn't dodging explosions or jumping out of planes. He was looking directly at them. Jessica swallowed hard, her confidence flickering. She had seen celebrities before, on Instagram, in magazines, but she had never expected to bump into one while making fun of someone in a department store. Tom Cruise slowly removed his sunglasses, revealing sharp, piercing eyes that seemed to see right through them. He wasn't angry. He wasn't yelling. But there was something about the way he stood, calm, composed, and completely unshaken, that made the tension in the air almost unbearable. Samantha, unaware of the full weight of the moment, looked up at him with innocent curiosity. She recognized his face but wasn't sure why. "Hi," she said softly, blinking up at him. Tom's expression changed instantly. He smiled, a warm, genuine smile, the kind that makes a person feel seen. "Hey there," he replied. "That's a nice bag you were looking at." Samantha beamed, momentarily forgetting the cruel words spoken to her just moments ago. Jessica, however, was still frozen. Her mind raced. Why is he talking to her? Why is he even here? Finally, she found her voice. "Oh my gosh, you're Tom Cruise," she blurted out, flipping her hair and adjusting her posture. Tom's gaze flicked to her. His smile didn't waver, but there was something behind his eyes. A sharpness, a knowing look. "Yeah," he said simply. "And you are?" Jessica let out a forced giggle, trying to regain control of the situation. "I'm Jessica. Wow, I didn't expect to see you here. What are you doing in a place like this?" Tom ignored the question. Instead, he turned back to Samantha. "So," he said, nodding toward the handbag. "Were you thinking of getting it?" Samantha hesitated, glancing at the price tag. I don't know. It's kinda expensive, she admitted. Tom nodded thoughtfully. Jessica, desperate to shift the attention back to herself, forced another laugh. Oh, she was just looking, right? We were just talking about how it's a little out of reach. Tom's eyes flickered, just for a second, but Jessica felt the weight of his gaze. Out of reach, he repeated, his voice calm. Mia and Lily shrank back. Jessica nodded quickly. Yeah, I mean, you know. She trailed off, suddenly unsure of herself. Tom looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned back to Samantha. I think it would look great on you, he said. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. Mia and Lily? Silent. Samantha? Blushing. The power in the room had completely shifted, and the story was just getting started. Jessica felt her stomach twist. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. A minute ago, she was in control, laughing at Samantha, making herself feel superior. But now Tom Cruise was standing here, looking at her like she was the one being ridiculous. Samantha, completely oblivious to the social game Jessica had been playing, looked between the bag and Tom. You really think so? She asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Tom nodded. Absolutely. Yellow suits you. And more importantly, you like it, that's what matters. Jessica clenched her jaw. Why is he being so nice to her? Mia, still flustered by the presence of a literal Hollywood star, finally spoke up. Wait, she said, forcing out a nervous laugh. You're telling me you, Tom Cruise, think she should actually buy it? Tom turned his gaze to her. Is there a reason she shouldn't? He asked, his tone still polite. But there was an edge now. A test. Mia hesitated. She had no real answer. At least not one she could say out loud without sounding like a complete bully. Jessica, seeing her friend struggling, quickly jumped in. No, of course not, she said with a fake giggle. I mean, if she really wants it, sure. Samantha smiled, looking back at the bag as if seriously considering it. That's when Jessica had an idea. She wasn't about to let some random girl and an unexpected celebrity encounter ruin her moment. Actually, she said, clapping her hands together. I have an idea. Since you love it so much, Samantha, let's make it fun. How about a little fashion show? You can try it on, strut around a little. Show us how great it looks on you. Mia and Lily immediately caught on, barely suppressing their smirks. Samantha blinked. A fashion show? Yeah. Jessica nodded enthusiastically. It'll be fun. You can model the bag for us, and we'll let you know if it's really worth it. Tom's expression remained unreadable, but he was watching closely now. Samantha hesitated. She had always loved playing dress-up with her mom growing up, and the idea of modeling a bag didn't seem bad. But something about Jessica's tone felt off. Tom must have sensed it too, because he suddenly turned to Samantha and said, You don't have to do anything you don't want to. Jessica's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. Oh, come on, she said, rolling her eyes. It's just for fun. Samantha glanced at Tom, then back at the bag. Finally, she nodded. Okay, she said softly. Jessica clapped her hands together, barely containing her excitement. Great. Everyone get your phones out. Mia and Lily immediately pulled out their smartphones, snickering to themselves. Tom's jaw tightened ever so slightly. Samantha, clutching the bag, walked a few steps forward, trying to mimic the confident walk she had seen models do on TV. She wasn't perfect. Her steps were a little off, her movements awkward. But she was trying, and in her mind she was having fun. Jessica, however, had other plans. Just as Samantha reached the center of the aisle, Jessica stuck out her foot just enough. Samantha tripped. The bag slipped from her hands and hit the floor. The entire store seemed to hold its breath. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then came the laughter. Jessica, Mia, and Lily burst out laughing. Jessica clutching her stomach, as if it was the funniest thing she had ever seen. Oh my God, are you okay? She asked, her voice dripping with fake concern. Samantha scrambled to her knees, her face burning red. She had only wanted to have fun. Tom moved instantly. Without hesitation, he knelt down beside her, helping her pick up the bag. Hey, he said gently. You all right? Samantha nodded quickly, but her eyes were glistening now. Tom turned his head slowly, not to Jessica, not to Mia or Lily. Instead, he looked directly into the camera of the phone recording the whole thing. Jessica's laughter died immediately. Mia, still holding her phone up, gulped. Because Tom Cruise wasn't just looking at them now. He was watching. He had seen everything. And the look in his eyes? It wasn't amused. The laughter had died, but the damage was done. Samantha's fingers trembled slightly as she clutched the yellow bag, her gaze fixed on the floor. She wasn't crying. Not yet. But it was clear that she was holding back. Tom's eyes remained locked on the phone screen in Mia's hands. Recording. A public humiliation captured forever. Jessica shifted awkwardly. Why did he have to look at them like that? It was just a joke. They did things like this all the time. It wasn't that serious. Mia, still holding up her phone, let out a nervous giggle. Oops, she muttered, lowering it slightly. Tom slowly straightened up. He wasn't angry, not in the loud, explosive way some people got. But his silence was heavy, unshakable. Finally he spoke. Delete it. The store went dead silent. Mia blinked. Wait, what? Delete the video. Tom repeated, his voice calm but firm. Jessica stepped forward, laughing as if to break the tension. Oh, come on, it was just... Now. The laughter stopped cold. Mia hesitated. She glanced at Jessica and Lily for backup, but they weren't saying anything. She had expected him to be cool, not this. Tom folded his arms. Do I need to repeat myself? Swallowing hard, Mia fumbled with her phone and quickly deleted the video. There. Gone. Tom didn't move. His gaze was still on her. And the trash folder, he asked. Mia's eyes widened. She had been caught. Hands shaking slightly, she opened her recently deleted files and erased the video permanently. Only then did Tom look away. Jessica, watching the whole thing unfold, felt her chest tighten. She wasn't used to feeling like this. Like she wasn't in control. And she hated it. This isn't fair. She needed to regain control. Now. Jessica let out a forced laugh, tossing her hair over her shoulder. Geez, okay, message received, Mr. Movie Star. She smirked, turning to Samantha. I mean, you're not actually upset, right? It was just a little fun. Samantha glanced at Tom, then back at Jessica. For a long second she was quiet. Then she smiled. It's okay, she said softly. Jessica let out a breath of relief. Finally, someone acting normal. But then, I forgive you. Jessica's smirk froze. Mia and Lily snickered behind their hands. Jessica's eye twitched. You forgive me? Samantha nodded. Yeah. My mom says it's better to forgive people. It makes your heart lighter. Jessica clenched her jaw. Did she seriously just make her sound like the bad guy? Tom smiled. Smart woman, your mom. Samantha beamed. Jessica, on the other hand, was boiling inside. Well, anyway, she huffed, crossing her arms. This has been fun, but we should really get going. Actually. Jessica froze again. Tom's voice cut through the air like a blade. Slowly he turned toward Samantha. You like that bag, right? Samantha nodded. Then let's get it for you. Jessica's stomach dropped. Wait, what? Samantha's eyes widened. Oh no, I couldn't. Why not? Tom asked, tilting his head. Samantha hesitated. Well, it's expensive. That's not a reason, Tom said simply. Jessica's blood boiled. Was he serious? Samantha still looked hesitant. But Tom smiled gently. Do you like it? Samantha nodded. Then it's yours. Before she could protest, Tom casually pulled out his wallet and walked to the cashier. Jessica's entire world flipped upside down. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She was supposed to be the center of attention. And now everyone in the store was whispering. Watching. Not her, but Samantha. Jessica clenched her fists. No. She wouldn't let it end like this. As Tom paid for the bag, she plastered on her best innocent smile and approached him. Wow, that was really nice of you, she purred. I mean, I guess we can all learn something today, huh? Tom turned to her slowly. Yes, he said. I think we can. Jessica beamed. Maybe she could salvage this after all. Like how kindness matters more than how someone looks. Jessica's smile wavered. Or how real confidence doesn't come from putting others down. Now people were looking at her. Not with admiration, but with realization. Jessica felt a pit form in her stomach. Tom leaned in slightly, lowering his voice just for her. And how some people reveal exactly who they are. The moment they think no one important is watching. Jessica's face drained of color. She didn't know what to say. She had lost. And for the first time in her life, she knew it. The store had gone eerily quiet. Jessica's mind was reeling. The control she had over the situation was slipping away. And for the first time in a long while, she felt completely exposed. The murmurs from the crowd, the soft whispers of disbelief, it was all suffocating. She had always been the one people watched, the one people looked up to. But now the attention was on Samantha. And Tom Cruise. That feeling, the sickening feeling of being dethroned, crept up her spine as she stood there, trying to maintain her composure. But she couldn't. Samantha was beaming, holding the yellow bag like it was the most precious thing in the world. Meanwhile, Jessica felt like she was sinking into the floor, like the walls were closing in around her. She was losing this battle. She had never imagined that it would end like this. Samantha hadn't done anything wrong. She hadn't even asked for Tom's help. It wasn't about Samantha at all. It was about the sudden shift in power. The spotlight suddenly pointed in a direction Jessica had never considered, away from her. Tom turned back to Samantha, his eyes gentle. "Are you sure this is what you want?" Samantha nodded eagerly. "Yes. Thank you so much." And then it hit Jessica. She didn't even get the chance to ask. That was when the full weight of her actions sank in. The cruel trick, the casual teasing, the way she'd tried to make Samantha feel small. It wasn't just a prank anymore. It wasn't a joke. It had hurt someone. And that someone was being supported by someone who was actually worth something. Jessica felt small. "You should be thanking me." The words slipped out before she could stop them, almost as if they had a life of their own. Her voice was trembling. Tom turned slowly to face her. And in that moment, Jessica realized just how much she had underestimated him. He wasn't the arrogant celebrity she had assumed. He wasn't playing the part for attention. He wasn't just acting. No, Tom was genuinely kind. And he had no time for shallow people who thought they could manipulate others for their own amusement. Tom took a step forward. "Thank you." His tone wasn't harsh, but it wasn't warm either. It was cold. "You've got a funny way of showing it," he added, his words hitting her like a slap across the face. Jessica's heart pounded in her chest. She was trying to keep it together, but the more he spoke, the more exposed she felt. Tom's gaze never left hers. He was still standing by Samantha, but it felt like he was directing every ounce of attention to Jessica now, like he had found her out. Jessica opened her mouth, but no words came. Mia and Lily, who had been nervously quiet for the past few minutes, exchanged looks. They knew what was coming. They could sense the shift in the air, like the storm before a downpour. Lily's voice broke the silence. "Jessica, maybe it's time to just apologize." Apologize? The word rang in Jessica's ears like a bell tolling in the distance. It was unfathomable. She, apologize? No way. Apologize for what? Jessica said, her voice trembling with a mix of frustration and disbelief. "I didn't do anything wrong." But her words were weak. She knew they were weak. Tom raised an eyebrow. "You don't think making fun of someone who's just trying to live their life, was wrong?" Samantha stood next to Tom, clutching the bag tightly, her eyes wide as she looked at Jessica. "I'm not stupid," Samantha whispered under her breath, but loud enough for everyone to hear. The sting of her words hit Jessica harder than anything else that day. It wasn't even just the public humiliation. It was the truth. Jessica had acted like she was untouchable, like nothing could challenge her perfect world. And yet here she was, standing in a store with an audience watching her fall apart. Tom, sensing that the tension was about to reach its peak, took a step back, putting some distance between himself and Jessica. He wasn't angry, not in the way she thought. He was simply done with her. "You've got it all figured out, don't you?" Tom's voice softened, but there was no kindness left in it now. "The problem is, when you treat people like toys, like objects for your amusement, you forget that people are human. They deserve respect." Jessica's breath caught in her throat. His words were cutting deeper than anything she had imagined. Her entire life had been built around the idea that if she played the game right, if she charmed the right people, everyone would fall in line. But Tom Cruise had seen right through her. And now the truth was on full display. Jessica was no longer in control. The camera phones were still rolling. People were watching. She wasn't the one in the spotlight anymore. It was Samantha, the quiet girl with the yellow bag, whose kindness had just shone brighter than any snarky remark or fashionable outfit ever could. And in that moment, Jessica realized something she hadn't before. She had been the bully all along. It wasn't just about the bag. It wasn't just about the moment of humiliation. It was about everything she had done, everything she had become. And it was too late to take it back. The weight of Tom's words still hung heavily in the air. Jessica was frozen. She had no words left to defend herself. Every excuse she had crafted in her mind felt irrelevant now. The crowd around her seemed to be holding their breath, waiting for what would happen next. Tom didn't need to say anything more. He had made his point, and he was standing by it. His eyes were cold, but there was a certain compassion in the way he turned back to Samantha. He wasn't here to tear anyone down. He was here to lift someone up. You know, he said to Samantha with a warm smile, sometimes the best way to deal with bullies is to let them expose themselves. You don't have to fight back. You don't have to retaliate. People like that will always show their true colors. Samantha blinked, processing his words. And then, as though a weight had been lifted from her shoulders, her face broke into a genuine smile. For the first time that day, she felt truly seen. Jessica, on the other hand, stood there feeling like the walls were closing in on her. The faces of the onlookers weren't full of sympathy anymore. They were full of judgment. They had all witnessed the truth. Mia, who had remained silent up until now, took a step forward. Her expression was softer, no longer tinged with the prideful distance she once held toward Samantha. You know, Jess, Mia began, her voice almost quiet but laced with disappointment. I don't think anyone here is surprised by what's happening. We've all seen the way you treat people. The way you've treated Samantha. Jessica turned sharply to her, but Mia didn't back down. You act like you're above everyone, like you're some queen. But the truth is, you've built your whole world on making others feel small. And now look where you are. The words stung, and Jessica tried to hold back the flood of emotions that suddenly felt like they might overwhelm her. The facade she'd so carefully built was crumbling. Tom looked at her one last time, his gaze now a mixture of pity and finality. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is admit you were wrong. But it's the only way you'll grow. If you want people to respect you, you have to start respecting them first. For a brief moment, Jessica stood still, barely breathing, as the realization set in. She had never been humble. She had never truly cared to understand or appreciate those around her. And now she was alone, left with nothing but her shattered pride. Samantha, who had once seemed so small in Jessica's eyes, was now standing tall beside Tom. Her presence, her authenticity, was something Jessica could never replicate. But it wasn't too late. She could still do something. Taking a deep breath, Jessica finally found the courage to speak, her voice small but sincere. I'm sorry, Samantha. For everything. I shouldn't have treated you the way I did. There was a long silence, and Jessica's heart pounded in her chest. Was it enough? Would it matter? Samantha's eyes softened, and a quiet smile tugged at her lips. Thank you. It wasn't a grand speech, it wasn't a perfect apology, but it was the first real step toward redemption. And in that moment it was enough. As the crowd began to disperse, some still murmuring quietly, others casting glances at Jessica and Samantha, the tension slowly began to fade. The storm that had engulfed the store was slowly passing. The final act of redemption had been written not by the arrogant girl who had once thought she was untouchable, but by the girl who had simply dared to show kindness. And the one who, after all of it, finally found the strength to say the words that mattered most. The crowd had started to thin out, but Jessica felt as though she were standing in the exact same spot she had been moments ago. Everything was different, yet nothing had changed. Her eyes flicked between Samantha and Tom, who were deep in conversation, sharing quiet words of encouragement. She had expected a different outcome. She had expected to walk out of the store victorious, with her friends by her side, the crowd admiring her. Instead, she was left to face the unavoidable reality. She had miscalculated. All her carefully constructed walls had come crumbling down. Tom had offered a few parting words before he left the store, shaking Samantha's hand and telling her she had the heart of a champion. His kindness was undeniable, And in that moment, Jessica envied him. Envied the ease with which he extended compassion to others, the calmness with which he held his strength. As the last few shoppers filtered out of the store, Jessica and Mia stood together in uncomfortable silence. Mia glanced at Jessica, then at Samantha, who was still beaming with quiet pride. You know, I used to think that you were just perfect, that you had everything figured out. Jessica turned, surprised by the softness in Mia's voice. But now I see that you've been hiding behind a lot of things, your clothes, your reputation, the way you carry yourself. And none of that really matters. It's who you are inside that counts. Jessica's throat tightened, but she didn't speak. Mia was right. The image she had spent years building was a farce, held up only by arrogance and pretension. But now, in this quiet moment, the weight of everything felt heavy. Samantha approached her, slowly and cautiously, as if unsure of what to expect. The yellow bag was still clutched tightly in her hands, but her expression had softened from the joyful exuberance it had once carried. Now there was something more. Something that was almost gentle. "Hey, Jessica," Samantha said quietly. I don't want things to be weird between us. I know I'm not your biggest fan, but I think you really have a chance to change. It's never too late." Jessica blinked, stunned by the genuine compassion in Samantha's voice. It wasn't a snarky, sarcastic remark. It wasn't an attempt to rub salt into old wounds. It was just real. A kindness that Jessica had never expected from someone she had once looked down on. "Thanks." Jessica's voice cracked, but she swallowed her shame, knowing she needed to say it. "You didn't deserve any of what I said." I'm sorry, Samantha." For a moment, there was nothing but silence between them. But then, Samantha smiled, the same warm, forgiving smile that had caught Jessica off guard earlier. "It's okay." It was all Jessica could ask for. But it still felt like something had been lost. Like her pride had been shattered in a way she wasn't sure how to rebuild. Just then, Mia placed a hand on Jessica's shoulder, a silent gesture of support. It was a small thing, but it meant the world. "Maybe this will be the start of something different for you," Mia said, her voice soft but firm. "But it's up to you to make it happen." The realization hit Jessica harder than anything. It wasn't enough to apologize. Words were easy, but actions, true change, was the real challenge. She had to prove that she could be better. She had to rebuild herself. And she would. But it wouldn't happen overnight. She couldn't expect forgiveness to erase the years of arrogance. She couldn't expect a single apology to make everything right. But she had taken the first step, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a spark of hope. As the store finally emptied, Jessica stood in the aisle, watching Samantha carefully as she headed toward the exit, the yellow bag still tucked under her arm. She had always assumed that everything would go her way, that the world would bend to her will. But the truth was it never had. What she had missed all along was that true strength came from within, not from the way she dressed, or the way she was perceived, or the people she kept around her. Strength came from owning up to mistakes and rising above them. It was about doing what was right, not what was easy. Jessica took a deep breath. She could change. And she would start today. But first, she needed to look at herself in the mirror and understand one thing. This moment, this choice to let go of pride, would define who she would become moving forward. As the door closed behind her, she felt a shift within herself, the first true step toward growth. The days following that encounter were filled with a quiet sense of change. Jessica could feel it every time she walked past a mirror, every time she encountered someone she had once looked down on. A shift that started from deep within, something she couldn't ignore anymore. She spent less time focusing on appearances and more on the people around her. For the first time in years, she truly listened when people spoke, without the constant hum of judgment or the need to assert her superiority. She started noticing the little things, the way Samantha always helped the elderly woman in the store, the way Mia stayed late after class to tutor struggling students. It was humbling, in a way she had never expected. One day, Jessica found herself sitting across from Samantha, the yellow bag now a familiar sight in her hands. They were sipping coffee at a small cafe, a quiet conversation unfolding between them. "I've been thinking," Jessica said, breaking the silence. "I want to do more. I want to help people the way you do. I never realized how much I could actually make a difference, even in small ways. Samantha smiled warmly, as if she had been waiting for this moment. I'm glad you're seeing that. It's not about grand gestures, it's the little things. The way you treat people when no one is watching. That's what matters. Jessica's heart felt lighter than it had in a long time. For the first time in her life, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment, not from attention or validation, but from genuine kindness. Later that week, Jessica received a message from Mia. She had been invited to volunteer at a local shelter, an opportunity to help those in need. Without hesitation, Jessica replied, "Count me in." It was the first step toward showing her actions matched her words. She wasn't just changing her attitude. She was turning that change into tangible effort. Months passed, and Jessica's reputation in school and beyond slowly began to transform. People noticed the difference. They saw her generosity, her newfound humility, and her willingness to offer a hand when others needed it. Jessica didn't expect instant forgiveness or instant admiration, but something deeper was taking root. She had learned a lesson she would never forget. True worth isn't about how others see you, but how you see and treat others. One afternoon, as she stood in line at the store once more, Jessica felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned around to find Mia and Samantha, smiling at her with a mix of pride and joy. "You've come a long way," Mia said, her voice full of sincerity. "We're proud of you." Jessica's chest tightened, but this time, it wasn't out of shame. It was a fullness, a gratitude she had never experienced. "Thank you. Really." She couldn't say it enough. She knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but for the first time, she understood that the journey wasn't about being perfect. It was about choosing to be better each day, and that in itself was enough. As she walked out of the store, the cool air hit her face, and a smile tugged at the corners of her lips. She had come through the storm, and now, she was learning to embrace the calm. The lessons she had learned were more valuable than any piece of designer clothing, more lasting than any fleeting moments of superiority. This was her true beginning, and it was only the start.